Welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 3. As you can see, I'm not in my normal location. You don't see This Week in Voice written a bunch behind me. I am out in Palo Alto for a AI dinner reception thing going on tonight, presented by our friends over at Deep Ram. Honored to be part of it. So this is an away game for us, the first time in a while that we've done that, certainly since the pandemic. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of Project Voice, general partner of Project Voice Capital Partners, and welcome back to the show. We've got a great panel of folks for you and some really interesting stories as well. So I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves to you and tell us and tell the audience what they do and who they do it with. And Katie, I'm going to start with you. If you don't mind, take a moment, tell us who you are, tell us who you're with, and tell us what you do.
Everybody, my name is Katie Kuzin. I'm based in New York City, and I work for Kensho AI, which is a company under the S&P Global umbrella. So my journey was from Capital One in the credit and credit card space, and then to a small aerospace startup in the unsupervised machine learning area. And we worked with NASA and the US Space Force to do some collision detection between satellites and space junk. And now I am at Kensho, and I'm the product lead for our voice to text solution Scribe.
Excellent. Yeah, it's great to have you be part of the show. Welcome. Next up, we have Irakli from Calen AI. Irakli, I always seem to mess your name up, and I always mess your company's name up too. Tell us who you are, tell us who you're with, tell us about Calen AI.
You did it perfectly. My name is Irakli Beselidze. I'm the founder of Calen AI. Calen AI is the first Georgian voice and chat assistant that helps enterprises to automate call center. That's it. I started my chatbot agency back in 2017, but dived into the AI space back in 2020. And in 2021, we started the first voice assistant. And on December 2021, we were the only winners from Georgia that were awarded by Google in the global chatbot contest. So obviously, I'm based in Tbilisi, capital of Georgia, country, not the state. So that has to be said, because usually people are confused when I'm talking about Georgia.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that mistake was made, I bet. You're the Georgia without the football team. Irakli, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for me.
Next up, we have Nikolai. Nikolai, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name for me, and just tell us, super interesting company as well. I want to pronounce it Wluper, but I know that's probably not right. I am interested as anybody to hear. Tell us, when you tell us who you are, tell us who you're with, and tell us what y'all do.
Perfect. Hi, Bradley. Thanks for having us on the show. Briefly, so I'm Nikolai Rozanov, CTO and co-founder of a company called Wluper. So you almost got it there. It's a German W. The founders are all German speaking, so we kind of thought, it will fly, but at the same time, it's great marketing for us. Everyone seems to wonder about the pronunciation. So it's an English V. What we do is we're a conversational AI startup. Predates actually all of the LLM hype from 2017, and we always focus on the industry use case as opposed to maybe customer support and other use cases. Particularly, we automate the deskless workforce. So what does that mean? Engineers, technicians, electricians, nurses, they are all deskless workers in the sense that their main work is somewhere in the field, not at the desk. At the end of the day or at the end of the job, they fill in forms, or they do a lot of paperwork at the end of the day, at the end of the job. We all know that hours of nurses are spent filling in paper forms, or engineers in the van filling in some of their work orders. What we help them do is reduce that time by 4 to 7 times with our voice AI. So instead of an hour of form filling, they do it less than 10 minutes. We also capture more data, and that is what Wluper does in a nutshell, basically.
Excellent. Thank you for that, and welcome to the show. So with that, we'll get to the news. And we have 3 stories this week that we're covering. And even before I get to any of the 3 of them, I want to take a moment just to simply note the fact that the 3 stories, the first one is about Google, the second one is about ChatGPT, and the third one is about Amazon and Alexa. And I think that is as good of an indication as where we're going over the next year, competitive wise, of anything else. I think it's those are the 3. It's a bit of a divergence from earlier in the show's history, where it was just Amazon versus Google all the time. It's interesting now that we've got a third competitor. Of course, it's oversimplifying a bit, but those 3 companies are going to be battling it out for a lot of enterprise market share over the foreseeable future. So story number 1, and I'm going to read the headline here: Google announces new Bard features as traffic continues to lag ChatGPT. That's from Reuters. And Katie, I'm going to start with you and go in the same order as the introductions. Interesting article, interesting piece here. Google is certainly making waves. What, if anything, stood out to you the most from this news?
Yeah, I think Google is a force to be reckoned with. They've got an immense power of like the Google network. So like Apple, once you're in the ecosystem, you have the MacBook and the iCloud and everything. It's like easier to basically stay there. Google's just like that. You have Gmail, you have Google Photos, and I think their ecosystem is their leg up. I'd be surprised if they are still lagging OpenAI for long. I'd bet they'd catch up on at least like the number of queries, if we're counting all the places that Google will inject Bard and their large language model into people's existing day-to-day.
Do you think that so there's a thought process out there that says that it really doesn't matter what Google does or doesn't do at this point. They will always be second fiddle or behind ChatGPT because ChatGPT was first, and it introduced people to all of this AI stuff, and it was people's first touch point with it. What do you think the damage is that ChatGPT beat? But the stories have been that Google had Bard or LLM based AI for a long time, and they just chose not to introduce it to anybody. So my question for you is, what do you think the damage is that ChatGPT beat them to the punch? A lot, none? It sounds like you're sort of leaning toward none. Is that what you think?
I mean, Google's done it before. My first Google was on Ask Jeeves. And yeah, OpenAI was first. It created a market. It captured social media, TikTok, people's posts on LinkedIn, people like the common consciousness. It's actually been incredibly interesting having worked in AI for a while and being like the AI person of, my friends in my network, for people to come and say like, hey, did you see you can have OpenAI make you like a drinking game or tell you where to go hiking on your trip? Like it's great that like my work and my passion is now this talking point. But yeah, OpenAI was first. It created the market. It's not going to go away. But I think that the network effects Google has is going to like keep their number of queries and users like up and to the right, especially because a ton of people are going to be using Bard that don't know that they are.
Interesting. No, that's great. And yeah, you're touching on something else, which is every pocket or faction of people has got an AI person, right? It's much in the way of like every family's got an IT support person, which often is the same person, I might add. Um, so yeah, your points are well taken, and thank you for those. Irakli, I'm coming to you. Same question. What, if anything, stood out to you from this piece about what Google is doing? And do you think that ChatGPT and OpenAI have got an insurmountable lead over Google or a surmountable lead over Google? Your thoughts?
Well, as Kathy mentioned, Google has been using, this autocomplete feature for Google search, I don't remember, probably 10 years. ChatGPT took this, autocompletion to completely another level. And what Google is doing, in my opinion, is that they're preparing their answer to Microsoft Copilot, which is going to be integrated with their Microsoft Office ecosystem. And Google doesn't want to be behind that, and they don't want workspace users to switch to Microsoft. That's the case for the Bard introduction, probably. So, and let's see, I'm pretty, because ChatGPT and Sam Altman is mentioning that they are close to AGI, and that ChatGPT is going to replace all the applications and it will be doing everything. And first time when they introduced ChatGPT, people were panicking, and it was a panic in Google that ChatGPT will replace the Google search and everything. But as we see, it's quite difficult to replace working application with just an auto-completion technology. Believe me, ChatGPT is a magic technology, but for the automation purposes, and we do automation using AI, I don't believe that it will, appropriate for at least in the approximate future. And that's my opinion, what I think about ChatGPT and Google introducing Bard.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of well, is there one in particular that Calen uses more within its operations than the other, or do you use them both, or which one do you use the most between ChatGPT and Bard?
For enterprise voice AI, we don't use any LLM at all. We use NLU-based systems because, LLM is not really reliable at the moment, is a bit slow for voice assistants. So we work with NLU, natural language understanding software like Cognigy or Dialogflow and so on and so forth. For office purposes, like, for email generation or even creating any type of content, we of course use ChatGPT because Bard is not that good yet. So, and I'm not sure that they will really catch up to the OpenAI level. That's what I think. Honestly.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Just to get your perspective on that, and thank you for that. And Nikolai, I'm coming to you with the same question. What, if anything, stood out to you from this article, and from Wluper's point of view? How do you look at ChatGPT? Is it something that you're incorporating, either, as Irakli was saying, distinguishing between using it perhaps inside your software, which is probably less likely, or using it inside your company operations, which is more likely? Share with us your thoughts on all of that.
Definitely. I think that's a really interesting question. I'll start with a quick take on ChatGPT versus Google, and then I'll comment on I think the general enterprise landscape of, I guess, voice AI, automation, and how these things fit in. My take is, I guess, even slightly different. So far Google has really, in my view, underperformed in terms of their technical capabilities and the amount of engineering power they have and cash. and marketing spend they could have. But I feel ChatGPT is, as Irakli said just now, actually performing better. That's a kind of, and so I feel Google is trying to play catch up here. At the same time, of course, the real question will be who will kind of build the best integrations, the smoothest integrations with all of these kind of software pieces that plug in, because as we all pointed out, just a great kind of typewriter, personal typewriter isn't perhaps enough to do everything, but I think it really depends on the capabilities. And so far, the smaller companies, and not only OpenAI, have been more capable, it seems, than the big players. So that is quite an interesting development. The one interesting thing in terms of enterprise AI, so where we come in as well as Wluper, is actually the question of how do you bring it to all of these kind of features to all the various software solutions. And one thing that's like I saw in the article is that Google is of course rolling it out first in its own suite of applications and then rolling out to other integrations. But I feel it's exactly this field of integrations and making it work with more specific software solutions, especially in our case, it's the field workforce apps that are very unknown to the general customer, that how to bring it there, that's a kind of like the hard question. And yeah, we have our own solutions. We, of course, build our platform in a way that we can use all of these technologies, including for the NLU side of things, but we don't use them necessarily. And on the contrary, we often use our own semantic engines, but we just want to be ready for the future. But so, yeah, I believe, just to summarize, I think the interesting question will be around the integrations and the capabilities and how these two will play off. And yeah, I'm curious. I think it's actually quite an early stage for this field, and even somebody else might emerge and take it all, basically.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that point. And on the fun side, this is something that we talk about a lot, is that companies that are just building on top of ChatGPT, of which there are a shocking number of those, you would be surprised. It's like, why? What are you doing? As soon as ChatGPT arrived, it's going to be something else tomorrow. You know what I mean? Google and Amazon and Microsoft, behind OpenAI, yeah, we know they're going to be here, but nobody can predict what that next thing to come is. So I think that's a really good point. And in terms of the integrations, I'll point out something else because you brought that up. I was reading an article, it was probably over the summer at some point, that was talking about the shocking amount of money that individual entrepreneurs and some small companies are making, and some actually large companies as well, are making off of their ChatGPT plugins. So I don't remember the exact moment in time that ChatGPT rolled out, OpenAI rolled out the ability to have plugins. I want to say it was early summer, but my memory's bad. But whenever it was, obviously there was companies that jumped right in, and the money that they're making pretty quietly is profound. So those comments are well taken. I'm going to transition from story one into story two here. I'm going to keep the same order as we had last time. So Katie, I'll start with you, and we'll go in the same order, and then we'll reverse it for the final one. But I want to point something out that I thought was interesting between story number one and story number two. I'm going to reread the headline for story one, and I'm going to read the headline for story two. So the story we just discussed, Google announces new Bard features as traffic continues to lag ChatGPT. Think about that for a minute. How that headline, that's like saying Pepsi rolls out a bunch of cool new features, but still sucks compared to Coke. It's like, what is Coke doing in the article? Like, what is ChatGPT doing in the headline? When you really start to think about it, like, it's really an unfair media portrayal, and it's putting ChatGPT up on a pedestal in kind of a weird way if you think about it. But story number two, which we're getting into now, The summer is over, schools are back, and the data is in. ChatGPT is mainly a tool for cheating on homework from Business Insider. So here's a total reversal where the first article was, hey, some trillion-dollar company's doing some stuff, but it doesn't compare to ChatGPT. And then the second article is, ChatGPT is absolute garbage. It's only used for cheating on homework. And Katie, I'm going to come to you. First of all, what stood out or what caught your eye or caught your attention from this story? Education and ChatGPT is a big story right now, and just want to get your thoughts overall on the piece, but also your thoughts as well on how if the media is either doing ChatGPT a disservice or a great service with how it's covering it.
With your last question, I mean, no bad press, right? There could be a bunch of people looking at that saying like, oh, how do I get ahead using this tool? Oh, other people are using this for their papers. Let me do it. Here's the problem I had with this article. It seems like a big leap to say that when use of ChatGPT goes down over the summer, that it's directly students, like high schools. It seemed to be geared more towards like a high school age audience. Everyone's working less, on a global scale, especially in Europe, the summer months have far significantly less like work being done. And there was no data that was presented in the article that points specifically to academic accounts. So it wasn't, .edu emails do X, Y, and Z. So I think that they're kind of like forcing a lead or like kind of missing the forest for the trees of just jumping to this being student. But second, I think what's true with this is it is a part of the educational process. Like, I do not doubt that there are students all across the world using this to write their essays, answer their questions. But this isn't the first time a new piece of technology has been added to a classroom. It's similar to the internet. Like, there's opinions all over the board, but I think we just need to understand how to put initial guardrails in place so that this isn't a hindrance. Like, the world is their oyster, right? Like, more information is available to them in an easier way, the same way Google helped connect the dots and a calculator helped connect the dots for students to get from question to answer. So my overall take is that if we use this tool and train teachers to optimize the educational experience using large language models, I think that in the long term, that'll win out over the fear of students cheating.
That's a great point that you made several great points, but about the using a piece of data to fit a narrative, right? With the drop in usage over the summer, and I can speak from experience trying to get in contact with different companies over the summer that we do business with. Didn't work. They were gone, and that doesn't mean the fact that there was less correspondence or less interaction there doesn't mean that their staff was students, right? Just because it was the summertime. So your point is really well taken, and isn't it interesting to sort of think about that? Decades and decades after the calculator has come out, we're still struggling with how calculators should be used at different points in our education system. There's not total consensus. Some might say there's not any consensus. And so it's interesting to sort of think about that in terms of ChatGPT, that this is a long-term game, and we're in the first inning, and there's a lot more to come. So yeah, great comments. Irakli, I'm coming to you. Want to get your thoughts as well on what stood out to you from the piece, and you feel free to comment on ChatGPT and education and your thoughts there, or also how the media is portraying ChatGPT, whether that's a net positive or net negative.
Well, let's start with the first title. So obviously, nobody knows about BART. So to explain what the BART is, Reuters is using ChatGPT because they have to, give the audience idea what they are talking about. Because ChatGPT is a kind of brand name like Xerox, right? You say Canon copiers or Xerox, like Canon copiers are selling well, but Xerox is better. So it's like a similar kind of headline, because on the top of mind, everything has ChatGPT. If they mention LLM, nobody would have a clue what they mean with BART, right? So they wanted to write an article about BART, actually, but to explain to people in one headline what they will be talking about, they mentioned ChatGPT, and also they added some conflict in there that Google is not catching up there. So this was a kind of, how to compose the headline question rather than, trying to, do something with let's say that Google sucks, in my opinion. So as for the education, as we know, like educational system is really outdated. So what they're teaching children, I mean, they use the same methodology as was invented like 100, 200 years ago, and this was definitely outdated even 20 years ago. But now with LLMs, I mean, you have to take educational system to completely another level, and that is something that I have a concern about that, because all this bureaucracy and educational system has to be approved by the government, and everything that will take a lot of time. So, and before that happens, I mean, they will update according to the technology. I mean, a lot of people will consider LLM ChatGPT as a cheating tool. So this would be really interesting to follow this topic with the cheating and with ChatGPT in the same, in the same article.
Yeah, well, it's funny that there would be probably plenty of people who would prefer your Georgia's education system to our Georgia's education system. And I say that as a Southerner born and raised. Yeah, not only is our education system antiquated, but it's also deeply politicized. So, we're here in the United States, we're handcuffed by the fact that we don't agree on what exactly should be going on at different levels of K-12 education, and higher ed for that matter too. And so it creates a difficult environment to try to insert ChatGPT or LLM AI, LLM-based AI into that. It's not a smooth runway to come try to land on. It's a troubled environment, and yeah. So I appreciate that you pointing that out and ruminating on that. Nikolai, I want to come to you as well. I want to ask you for what stood out from this piece to you, and you've heard two sets of comments on this already. Share with us your thoughts.
Thanks a lot, Bradley. I think this is actually one of the more interesting articles, and I mean, I can agree with Katie's point on the fact that that data can be used, and the media, I guess, we see this especially these days much more often, just using pretty much any data that kind of aligns with an argument, right? So just to portray a narrative that fits kind of their general agenda. I think that is that is, I think, definitely to be expected in some outlets more than others, but also in general. This brings us actually back to education as well. And I think I'm not an education expert. I have a lot of my relatives are actually teachers, though, on different levels. I think it's a very complex topic. And in fact, if one looks back at the ancient Greeks and perhaps at some of the colleges in the US and some of the thinkers in the US, there's maybe even an argument, and perhaps that's what you were referring to, Bradley, in terms of calculator disagreement of what exactly education should constitute. And I think really the interesting thing to kind of explore is how to, on one hand, integrate all of the new technologies, such as ChatGPT and all of these developments, but also have a strong foundation of perhaps classical thought and classical skills, such as even going back to memorization. It seems like it's great if you can look up everything on Google, but if you don't even know what to look up or what the connections are in one's own mind, it's really hard to kind of navigate life. But also a general foundation on kind of how thoughts developed, what perhaps maybe like a more foundational kind of question of why are we here is, I think, lacking from education, as the old and ancient Greeks had, which might have had a quite positive impact on people, as opposed to always just rushing behind the newest and shiniest thing, which might be outdated in 10 years, right? So I think that is definitely something to think about. And but one thing I'll say is definitely more investment into education would be really good in all states, including here in England as well. So yeah, that's my comment.
Well, and that touches on something else entirely, right? Which is where is that line for most people with what a human being should spend time learning the intricacies of versus what is a waste of time for most human beings to learn. So we're never going to agree on that, but right now we're not even agreeing on what the subsets of human beings are. If somebody's going to trade school to be an electrician, do they really need to learn spend a bunch of time reading 10 Shakespearean works, which could be summarized to them by ChatGPT in 5 minutes? If somebody is going to be a teacher, do they need to spend time learning everything to a collegiate level, or only the stuff that they're going to teach? It's interesting, right? These things, there's no consensus at all, and then you just take AI and it's like pouring kerosene on the fire, and it's pretty nasty right now. So look, all of your comments are well taken, and I want to make sure that we leave time for this third story, so I'm going to go ahead and go to it. And I'm going to read the headline out loud. Amazon gives Alexa a generative AI makeover. This is from voicebot.ai. So I'm going to go in the reverse order for this. Nikolai, Irakli, and then Katie, I'm going to give you the last word. Nikolai, I think this is a moment that we've been waiting for. So yesterday, while I was on planes all day, Amazon did their fall event, which is literally what I think they call it, a fall event for Alexa, where they announced new features and in some cases new hardware. Over the last few years, they've done this. And yesterday it was all about the incorporation of LLMs, generative AI techniques and methodology into the existing Alexa ecosystem. And I think for those of us who have been following this area of technology, this conversational AI, for some time, it's exciting. It's something we've been waiting for. My question to you is, what, if anything, stood out from the article about yesterday's announcement? And do you agree that this is exciting?
Oh, thanks very much. I think from the article itself or from their presentation, actually, the capabilities that they showed in their kind of demo video, right? I guess, product demonstration. I think that was really impressive. I mean, you could see that you could just freely, the person, in the product demonstration could easily and freely talk to Alexa, get back responses, create tasks, right? Write emails, write to-do lists. And I think that is actually, as you say, Bradley, that's something we've been, I guess, captivated by as a reality ever since I think Siri came out. I guess that's what Steve Jobs sold to us all these years ago. And I think if they can deliver on that promise and it actually performs what they're saying with that kind of fidelity, I think we're actually coming closer to that particular vision. And it would be really interesting, I think, from my perspective, the real question is, how will it perform in practice? And how will it actually integrate with all of these things? And this is perhaps where back then, actually, the discussion for I mean, including for us as a company, but also when comparing Apple and Google and Amazon, the question was always who will win, and each had their own benefits, with Amazon having the largest share of maybe users and devices in terms of the voice market, but Apple and Google having more apps and more devices overall, right? So that is kind of the interesting question, is how will it perform in practice, but also how will it integrate with real software in the world? So that's interesting for me to watch, and I'm excited to try it out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I appreciate you pointing out the video that was part of it, because in that video, it shows, if it's the same video that I think you're referring to, it shows this woman interacting with essentially Alexa 2.0, and she's going all about her day, doing different things, and then this constant, very involved conversation with Alexa throughout, and total trust in the technology. Trust that if I speak the words, you're going to understand it, and you're going to be able to do something with it that will please me. And that trust always hasn't been there. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Irakli, I'm coming to you with the same question. What, if anything, stood out to you from this piece about yesterday in the Alexa briefing? And is this something that you're excited about?
Well, I have kind of controversial take on this. I think that the team of Alexa, they came up with an idea that LLM would be better than what they are already doing, because Alexa developers were trying to create a system that generates kind of relevant response and service as a response to the user's utterance, but they didn't really succeed that much. So Alexa wasn't really a good voice assistant. So they tried to, now they are building the system. Before they had to build a system that generates response. Now they're building a system that they are trying to control the responses of, because they have to have some type of control over the responses, because it can generate any response. So, and it will be interesting actually to see if they will succeed in this endeavor. It's really interesting to me how they will use LLM actually to perform services as predictably as it should be with the NOU, like less advanced system. But yeah, but I'm really excited because that's a change they had to make a change, because Alexa wasn't performing that well, and that's why Google closed their Actions program, so you can't have third-party applications for Google Assistant. We had one, by the way. So, and this was, I mean, total failure, right? For Google and for Alexa as well. So, and I'm really excited to see how this technology will help them to build better voice assistants that will serve people better. So that's all about that, I think.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, which is there was a lot of confusion, and still is a lot of confusion around, was Alexa, like if we're calling this new LLM-based Alexa 2.0, was Alexa 1.0 successful? I could line up 100 technologists or 100 people right now who different walks of life, and I could ask them the same question: was Alexa 1.0 successful? And the answers are going to be all over the board. Some people are going to be shaking their head no, like you. Some people are going to be shaking their head yes, like me. And then there's going to be a lot of people who are, on either side of the fence. And the fact is, so arguments, it's like anything else. You got to be able to argue either side of it. On the arguments for, it became ubiquitous. They sold hundreds of millions of devices. It became a household name. It definitely helped advance e-commerce to some degree, not as much as they wanted. But it did some legwork there. They created a lot of partnerships. It augmented other parts of Amazon's business, especially in the media and entertainment realm. So it did a lot of work. On the no side, it lost a lot of money. So you could say, well, they sold a lot of devices, but they sold them as loss leaders. You could say, well, it didn't do anything that it hoped to do. And in no area did it fully live up to its potential. And I think that's probably true for as much headway as it made. So there's a good debate there. I don't think we need to go into all of that, but your point is well taken that not everybody agrees that Alexa was ever a success to begin with, and now they're trying to build off of it. So thank you for that. And Katie, I'm coming to you, and I'm going to give you the last word on this. What, if anything, stood out to you from this piece and this bit of news from yesterday? And are you excited? Do you share the excitement about Alexa 2.0, or do you think it's a bunch of hype?
I think for someone who already uses Alexa, it seems like it's going to enhance the experience. The problem that has come up in other conversations that I've had has been the ease of use for the Internet of Things add-ons. So someone saying, hey, Alexa, set some mood lighting, and the communication going from like the person to the Alexa to the smart light bulb to actually have it work at the end of the day. It takes a lot more like tech savviness, tech know-how to set up all of those players in your home than it seems like Amazon designs for. For me personally, I'm not a huge Alexa person, and or frankly, any automated assistant. And the idea of the Alexa kind of always listening and not really hearing for, hey, Alexa, it's just not something that I'm particularly excited about, especially because I did have an Alexa for some time, one in the kitchen, and almost every day it would think we were talking to it, and we weren't. Like it would say, hey, can you say that again? And I was like, we're not doing this right now. And the idea of that getting worse potentially because it said it was looking for certain tone and certain words. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, but it's not positive.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other rat's nest entirely, right? Is that the privacy concerns have never gone away. It seems like what Amazon, now to hear you explain what you just did, which I thought was great. Amazon seems like they've arrived at the conclusion that either you're comfortable with us or you're not. Like, I didn't discern anything in the announcement yesterday from Amazon that in any way addressed privacy any more than they've already spoken about it. So I think that that's an interesting observation, because yeah, there's tons of people who are not comfortable with always on devices, just like you. And I often tell the story that very early on in this show, I had on a guest. This was season one, back in 2017, where somebody who was an Alexa champion, which is a phrase that for Amazon that Amazon gives to people when they are out representing Alexa in the community, in one way or another. This woman very bluntly said, "Oh yeah, well, when at the end of the day, when my children are done playing with Alexa, I unplug every Echo in the house." And I'm like, "Huh? What?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't trust the devices at all." And that was I've referred to that. I'm gonna leave the woman nameless as far as this is concerned, but I've referred back to that over and over again. So because if somebody who is at that level of a relationship with Amazon feels that way about their trustworthiness, you can be assured that other people don't trust them either. So I think that your points are very, needed for this sort of discussion. Nikolai, Irakli, Katie, I appreciate all of y'all taking the time to share your expertise, your experience, not just with me, but the audience as well. It's greatly appreciated. For the Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 3, thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for listening. If you're on your podcast provider of choice, shout out to Adobe for Adobe Podcasts, their AI tool we're now using to edit the audio. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.